is on.
Okay, we are at 7 o'clock Apple time. Camera's looking good.
Funny to watch.
Call to order the Tuesday, June 9th meeting of the Coastside County Water District. Roll call, Joanne, please.
Sure. Director Coverdell?
Here, sort of.
Vice President Glassberg?
Here.
Director Reynolds is absent. Director Flint?
Here.
President Michelson?
Here. All right, pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Okay, moving to public comment. If we have any members of the public who'd like to speak, now would be the time to get a speaker slip filled out real fast and make a comment. Otherwise, we will move on to the next item.
Some of my neighbors told me that I could come down here to understand why you all have proposed a raise in our water rates when we're being required to pull back on the use of our water, get penalized if we do not use less water than we normally do, and then again facing a raise in the rates. Am I at the right meeting? I thought all my neighbors would be here. And by the way, I'm Elizabeth Thompson, and I live in Half Moon Bay. So are you going to discuss that issue today?
No, actually tonight we're not. We have scheduled an entire evening to discuss our rate increase on June 30th.
Oh,
So we scheduled a special meeting so we can dedicate an entire evening to that very subject. We will have, financials available, frequently asked questions available, and I'm sure the room will be much fuller. So therefore, we are dedicating an entire night to that very subject.
And in this room?
In this room. So you're more than welcome to make your comments tonight. I mean, there's, we're missing one, but there are four sets of ears here, certainly listening to your concerns. So you could voice your concerns right now.
Sure.
We'll take them up, and we'll add them to the 30th meeting, or you could come back the 30th, whatever
I'll
you like.
probably do both. I'll
Okay.
just say that in my mind, there's a question as to why you all can't make adjustments. And what is it specifically that's still going to cost so much, even though we're using less water? I don't understand the issues of why there has to be a raise in our water. And is it a matter of simple math? I don't understand the complications behind keeping the water quality and the services. And perhaps on June 30th, you'd have something in mind.
Yeah, we should have a complete
to be able to
PowerPoint
explain
available.
that.
Answer, we'll have frequently answered, anticipated questions will be answered ahead of time, along with the PowerPoint. And if at the end of our presentation you don't understand that, you're free to ask, questions that we have not addressed to your satisfaction.
That would be
So that'd be
good.
an entire evening.
Okay. See you then.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, moving on to consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
I believe it was Director Flint that
I
reviewed
did, yeah.
the
I found everything to be in
financials.
order.
Okay, great. Roll call, please.
Yes, Director Coverdell?
Aye.
Vice President Glassberg?
Aye.
Director Reynolds is absent. Director Flint?
Aye.
President Michelson?
Aye, thank you. Moving to meetings attended, director comments. Anyone go to any particularly good meetings, informative meetings, conferences? No? What's the score, Ken? No.
I told you about my only meeting.
40 to 34. Not that I know.
Don't give it away, I'm taping it.
This is for our
Oh.
next agenda item here.
I did attend a Bosca meeting, although tonight's news was, did you hear the number of how Hetchy is, 91.8% full?
Wow.
So,
Going up from 60.
Yeah,
And
so
more
it's-
rain coming tonight.
yeah, and more rain, thunder showers, anticipated. So it went over 90. They were, reasonably optimistic, although we have been drawing the water bank down. There was mention of Mountain Tunnel. Mountain Tunnel's, the big variable out there, and, the fear is, potential 90-day disruption if Mountain Tunnel were to go out in a catastrophic manner. So they're doing their best to move enough water down country in anticipation of a worst-case scenario, 90-day disruption in the flow of water. Hopefully that won't happen, and so they are aggressively dealing with it, and there's probably 3 years out maybe before they really have an answer. But it certainly is on the radar. And we did not get a Calaveras update.
Oh, that's my question.
Which is maybe a good thing because yeah. So Calaveras, I'm assuming it's on track, over budget, but on the latest track. And that's as much that we heard of Bosco. Great, thanks.
Can I ask you one more
Sure.
question? Do you know when they're scheduled to reopen Crystal Springs over the dam?
That is in the hands of the county now. So SFPUC is completely done with their project, and I understand the replacement of the roadbed now is up to the county.
Cool.
So I know so they've washed their hands of it, and they're, deferring all questions to county.
Great. That's
And
great.
I imagine it's not cheap to replace that, and it's really, clearly it's not necessary, little used, so I don't know how big of a budget priority that is. But yeah, it'd be interesting to know.
Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Moving on to general business, I see we have getting a presentation from county elections on how to, I hope this at the end, net result is it saves everybody money, so how much is it going to save us?
Terrific. Hopefully a lot of money. My name is Jim Irizarry. We do have a PowerPoint. I don't know if that's possible to put on.
You better believe it.
Well, if not, I'll just wing it, which is pretty good too.
We're up to
I can stand right. The color one.
Both came on.
That's okay.
Hey, wait, I'm liking that a lot better. Forget the TVs.
And I'll read your mind, figure out what.
There we go.
Change slides.
It's always nice to have a dog and pony show. A little picture always helps. And so moving it along, how do we kind of do that?
You got to nod at the,
Well, I've got a nod.
I can-
Okay.
it's a relationship. as
Terrific.
opposed to-
Well, I'll nod and you can go ahead and put the first one up there. Well, Mr. President, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity of being here tonight. My name is Jim Irizarry, and I'm the Assistant Assessor, County Clerk Recorder, and with me is a colleague from the Registration Elections Division, is Hillary O'Connor, and we will be presenting to you tonight the provisions of AB 2028 All-Mail Ballot Pilot Project in San Mateo County. Your Chief Elections Officer tonight, Mark Church, apologizes for not being here. He is making a presentation tonight with the City of South San Francisco. And we have...
It's not even competition.
And we have 37 jurisdictions.
Did you get the short straw?
Way better food out here.
Yeah, really. A lot nicer environment and nice people. So we have about 37 jurisdictions that are going to be having an election this coming November, and we're making presentations to all of those jurisdictions during this period of time. And it's amazing when you look at San Mateo County. We're a small county, but we have 20 cities. We have 25 school districts, 26 special districts. We're over 60 districts. We have more cities and districts in the county of San Diego. So we're a small county, but we have a lot of election business that we conduct because of the complexity of our demographics and structure. What is AB 2028? AB 2028 became effective on January 1st, 2015. Basically, it is an extension of the Yolo County all-mail ballot project. It's a pilot program that's designed by the state legislature and the Secretary of State to gather information on the effects of all-mail balloting in a jurisdiction. So they first started with Yolo County, which is a small rural county. They held a couple of elections there, and it resulted in a report to the state legislature and to the Secretary of State on the effects of all-mail balloting in a very small rural county. But what the state legislature did was to expand this program to a much more diverse county, both economically, socially, It's very diverse culturally, and the results that we would get from San Mateo County will be significant. And as a result, we were chosen. And I'm proud to say San Mateo County is known as a leader in the state of California. We really are a crown jewel of California counties, in my opinion. And we have a lot of innovative projects and programs that come from San Mateo County that lead the way in the state and even nationally. And this is one of them. So the all-mail ballot pilot project is really an honor to be a part of for all of us. And again, the primary purpose is to gather information. Gather information for the state legislature and the Secretary of State. We will, after we conduct the first election, we will contract with a consultant from University, California, and possibly some other entities to draft our report and results on that, and we'll present that both to the state legislature and also Secretary of State. Under the all-mail ballot program, we can conduct up to 3 elections. They're not going to be presidential elections, they're odd-year elections. So they're basically municipal consolidated local special district elections. That's what this law is focused on. And so we're targeting, we're hoping to have 3 elections. 2 of them will be what we call the Udell Election. That's under the Uniform District Election Law. First one will be in November 3rd of 2015. And we're, again, back to the original premise that San Mateo County is very unique. We hold more elections in off years than most counties in the state of California. And that's why we're being looked at to hold this pilot project. So we're shooting for the November 5th election, and up to 3 can be conducted during the period that we have under the law, which is through January 1st, 2015. And as I mentioned, it does not include presidential elections in 2016. AB 2028, how does it work? Well, first of all, every voter will get a ballot in the mail. Every single registered voter. And the beauty of that is that studies have shown that when a voter receives a ballot, they're far more likely to vote. It's different than receiving a sample ballot. It's different than receiving a postcard. You're actually going to get your ballot there. And there'll be a lot of legwork that goes before that. Studies have shown that, it usually takes about 4 contacts for people to really sink in, what they need to do, when they need to do it, how they need to do it. So we intend to send out at least 4 notices, a sample ballot, postcards, the actual ballot, and follow-ups with media, social media, newspapers, etc. So during that prior month before the election, there's going to be a pretty intensive voter outreach and reminder program. We'll be using billboards, and it'll be a fun election to watch. And so we hope that by everyone receiving a ballot, that's going to increase voter turnout, and we'll talk a little bit more about the savings that will accrue to the districts. Really important to note that all of the envelopes will be postage paid as compared to current mail ballots that we send out where there is no postage paid on it. In this election, every ballot and every envelope will be postage paid, so all you have to do is just return it. The beauty also of this election is that under new law that has been passed, prior we could only receive the ballot on election day. It had to be in our offices by 8 o'clock on election day. Well, now we have election day +3, which means that if you do send it by mail, as long as it's postmarked on the day of the election, we can receive it 3 days after, and it'll still count. So that's new in this particular election. Although we call it an all-mail ballot election, it's very important to note that we will still have polling places. Every city will have a polling place. And in fact, more than cities will have a polling place. We're looking at about 25 polling places, which in practice will actually be voting centers, meaning that they will be hardwired to our elections office. We'll have all of the data there. So if you live in Half Moon Bay and you work in Daly City and you forgot your ballot and you want to vote that day, you'll be able to vote in the Daly City voting center that day. So every polling place that will be open in San Mateo County will be a voting center, so that means you can vote in person or drop your ballot off on that day. So it adds a tremendous amount of convenience for everyone. And again, even though we call it an all-mail ballot election, there will be traditional polling places that you can cast your ballot that day if that's the way you would like to do it.
And women voting as well.
Yes. We have to be careful, we've gotten criticized because it's an all-male ballot election.
Might want to be an all-post ballot.
Mailed.
Mailed ballot, yes.
Mailed.
There we go.
In the past, that's.
Enunciate.
That's been clarified on a variety of occasions.
Oh, they're
We
crazy.
can have our next
We
slide.
could never get away with that in a public agency.
What are the possible benefits of all mailed ballot elections? Okay. Well, studies have shown, in our own experience here in San Mateo County, is that it has an increase in voter participation. We have the benefit under our county charter when there is an election at the county level to, for example, replace the Board of Supervisors members. We can hold an all-mail ballot election, and we have done that. So we've compared the two. We've compared a traditional polling place election, and we've compared our all-mail ballot election to fill a supervisor seat. And we found a 10% increase in the all-mail ballot election. We also see a reduction in the costs. Studies have shown that. And you'll see reductions in cost between 33% to 50% of the actual 33 to 50% actual cost savings as compared to a traditional polling place election. And when you look at it, you can understand why. When we have a traditional polling place election, we usually have 209 polling places. We have 450 precincts. 350 precincts are served by those 209 polling places. We have 1,400 voting machines that we have to mobilize. Think of the logistics of that. And that's throughout the whole county. Small election, as long as it's countywide, every election we need to mobilize a tremendous amount of equipment, labor, and costs are incurred. Those costs will be eliminated in an all-mail ballot election. Rather than 209 precincts and polling places, polling places, you'll have 25, 26, 27, something in that neighborhood. So it just saves a tremendous amount of money to the entities, to the jurisdictions when you conduct an all-mail ballot. How much? What does that mean? For the Coastside Water District, you're looking, your last election in 2013, approximately you had a $22,000 cost for your election. That's what it actually cost you to participate in that election. We anticipate you'll see anywhere between $7,000 to $11,000 in savings on a very similar election. And that's because of the mobilization that we don't have to incur in an all-mail ballot election. The other factor is that because you don't have so many moving parts, it reduces the risk of human error significantly. And we'll also have faster results. We'll be, at 8 o'clock, we'll have by far and away the majority of the votes coming in. We have 28 days, well, now it's 30 days to certify an election after the election day, but we pretty much have the majority of the votes tallied on that night. We'll wait, in a close election, of course, we've got the 3 days, and Mr. Church will take the full, 30 days to certify an election in a close election. But in terms of what the public will actually know, available on our website, and the returns that have come in, we should have the majority of those in at 8 o'clock. By about 10 o'clock, you'll know most of the returns and how the folks voted.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
So, right now we have mail-in ballots for people who can't get to the polls, and for military, for instance, who
Correct.
are out of the area. We won't need that process per se for not the military, but for the others, right? Because everybody's going to be mailing it in.
Everyone's going to get a mailed ballot.
Okay.
So
How will
permanent or one time, it's the same in this one.
Will there be any change in the way military or people not in the country at the time would be voting?
No,
Be the same
it'll be
process?
the same process. Who votes by mail now? If you take a look at the the chart and the statistics, you'll see approximately right now 57% of the county's voters are one-time permanent by mail voters. The interesting statistic as it relates to this district and in the other districts is, for example, in this particular district, approximately 60% of your voters are full-time, permanent vote-by-mail voters. But during the last election, approximately 79, almost 80% of the votes that were actually cast were vote by mail. In other words, you had a larger amount of the votes that were actually cast that came in, far more than the actual polling place, which was about 21%. So, you know, you can see that all-mail ballot voting in San Mateo County is the preferred method of casting a ballot, and the trend is increasing, both statewide and locally. Maybe we can move on to the next. And I kind of covered that. This is more of a countywide, and that's the statistic that I just mentioned with respect to your last election. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the actual logistics on that day. There will be one ballot drop box in each city or town, and that will be open during business hours 28 days prior to Election Day. So you'll be able to drop your ballot off at that ballot box location, which in all likelihood will be also the voting center on that day, but for sure you will have and everyone will know where those locations are. You'll be able to drop it off at the ballot box 28 days prior to an election day. Those ballot drop box will be open until 8 p.m. on Election Day. So you'll be able to drop it off again at any one of the voting centers countywide. We have two traditional voting centers that will remain as classical voting centers, and those are the ones in Redwood City and at 40 Tower Road, which is Elections Central. And I mentioned a little bit about the time period that they are open 29 days before. The law requires that each city or town have a polling place. So we have 20 cities, guaranteed we'll have 20 polling places. In our particular case, Chief Elections Officer Church has decided that they're not just going to be polling places, they will be voting centers to allow the flexibility countywide to cast the ballot on that day. And that'll be again there for those who prefer to use that method, or, you know, accidents do happen. People may lose their ballot. They may not receive it. They may remember, oh, today's election day. They can simply go to if they're a registered voter, they can simply be at any of the voting centers and cast their ballot that day. And again, some people really prefer the traditional, you know, polling place, and that will be there on that day. The next steps for us, the county, we're currently outreaching, as I mentioned, to all of the districts and all of the cities, but we're going to be entering into an intensive campaign to conduct voter outreach, voter information, and voter education. And there will be multiple contacts, as I mentioned, with each registered voter in this county. We will have a significant media campaign, public service announcements, which will cover the whole gamut of media, radio, digital, print, and social media. And then, as I mentioned, we will hire an independent consultant to analyze all of this at the very end to conduct that report. This is really kind of where the timeline and the responsibilities on the districts come into play. There's a specific resolution that has to be passed by the district board. And it has to be, the deadline to call an election traditionally, or under the Elections Code, is 125 days. It's called E-125 before the election. And that would be July 1, 2015 is when is the deadline that you have to call an election. And then the AB 2028 law basically says that you have E-minus 88 days or till August 7th, which is the last date to request participation in the all-mail ballot election. We're recommending and suggesting that you pass that prior to that date, because that way we have basically the ability to know if we're going to be able to move forward on that or not. Very interesting provision of the law. And that is all or none. If we were simple, like Yolo County, you know, you got a couple of school districts there and water district, it'd be pretty simple. Okay. But we have, as I mentioned, over 60 some odd jurisdictions here. The last count was 37, but I think it could be close to 40 right now that are going to be having elections or over that. And we must include every jurisdiction that is going to hold an election must have passed a resolution to participate in the all-mail ballot process. So if one jurisdiction does not pass.
Sorry, guys.
Okay. If one jurisdiction does not pass the provision, the resolution, then basically countywide we would not be able to hold the all-mail ballot election. So it's very important that carefully consider this and see the benefits. Because really what it is an opportunity for us to study the all-mail ballot concept. And it's something that's very important, not only for San Mateo County, but for the state to understand better. So on that note, I've kind of spoken maybe a little too much here, but I wanted to open it up to any questions and answers or any discussion that you might want to have.
You just answered the only question I had. It's all or none.
It's all or none.
Okay. Do you have any sense about vulnerability with this system over our traditional system to fraud? Whether it will be less vulnerable, more vulnerable? No difference?
I would say it's less vulnerable, but no difference for sure. And Hillary, you want to speak a little bit to the...
I'd lean more towards the little or no difference. You know, if your intent is to fraud, you're going to figure out a way to do it, whether by mail or at the polls. The physical security is in place at the polling place, and at the, at the elections office, we have better security measures than they have at the polling places. But there's more room for things to happen with that many ballots in all mail. So it's a 50-50, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other situation.
We have lots of security procedures in place in the all-mail ballot process and the vote by mail. All ballots are...
Checking signatures.
We check signatures on multiple occasions, and it's not just one person. It goes from one station to another to another. If there's any questions, it goes to a supervisor. And what we're trying to determine there is voter intent. So we very seriously take our responsibilities. It's very important that we try and cast every ballot that we receive. So it's voter intent that we're looking at. We're looking at signatures, and and we have multiple ways of checking that through machines and through actual, physical review of every ballot. I've observed it over the last couple of years. I'm impressed with the process. And by the way, all of you are invited to come on Election Day and see how the process actually works, how the votes are tabulated. It's open to the public. It is a very interesting process. And I would highly encourage you to see how your election system works in San Mateo County. It's very transparent, very open to anyone at any time to view.
Is there a mechanism to see what our signatures look like for those whose signatures change or evolve, other than physically coming in to look at the original signature card, or is that a...
No, that's it, coming in and looking at the original.
Okay, that's the...
If there's a question, if you think it's been a while since you registered, re-register. Do it, update your signature.
Okay, so that would be one, okay, so just re-register.
Just fill out a new card, yeah,
Fill out,
absolutely.
okay.
Or register online, so it's what it's doing if you register online is it's capturing your signature from the DMV. So if you have a question, you go, let's see, how did I sign my driver's license? Okay, that's my signature. Because it does change. They almost didn't count my vote by mail ballot because my signature didn't match my DMV when I signed completely different now than I did when I was 16.
Okay, that's a year.
Yeah, so if there's a question, absolutely.
I'll re-register because my signature.
Encourage people that you run into on the street to re-register if it's been a while since they registered.
And
Absolutely.
the other important item, especially within the all-mail ballot process, is that we have more time to check. So if we see that there's an error, there's a discrepancy, we'll get back in touch with you.
Yes.
And we'll say, by all means, recast your ballot, do whatever you can. If it's at the last day, it makes it a little difficult, but...
But you would take that?
We would take, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We want every vote to count.
Something else that we do is we family match. So we get a ballot and it's got a signature, we say, you know what, this is not it. Well, we look for the other household signatures because we're going to come up usually with another ballot with a signature that doesn't match. So we're going to look, same address. That's the wife's signature. She signed her husband's ballot and vice versa. They match. We're going to count them.
Oh, no, it all sounds really well thought out. So
Yeah.
save everyone time, do we have a motion?
I move that we
We're going to
approve
kill this deal.
Resolution 2015-05, directing the San Mateo County Chief Elections Officer to conduct the November 3rd blah, 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 blah. It's all in writing here. Do you want me to read it all?
I think resolution 2015-005 is probably good enough, legal counsel.
Yeah, I think it's
that
fine.
fully addresses it. I'll second that. John?
Yes. Dr. Coverdale?
Aye.
Vice President Glassberg?
Aye.
Director Reynolds is absent. Director Flint?
Aye.
And President Michelson.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Proud to live in the county.
Thank you very much. It's a great place to live,
Also
and
closer to Switzerland.
And I'm
Yeah,
hoping all the ballot boxes look just like that.
there you
Wouldn't
go.
that be nice? Hey,
Yeah.
maybe a community painting project. I think that would be great.
I think so.
Thank you all very much, and
Thanks for
and thank
coming.
you all for the great work that you do, too. You know, we all don't figure out how complicated, when we just turn the water on and it comes, but there's so much behind it, and thank you for the excellent job that you do, too,
Thanks.
to get that water there.
Spring, I don't need y'all.
Thank you.
Okay, wait a minute, let's reconsider now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank
She'll be
you.
taking us.
Thank you.
Okay, Dave.
All right. We have as we usually do in the meeting between our 218 notice and the public hearing, we've included the budget in the board packet in case anybody wants to look at it or comment on it, as one member of the public did tonight. But we had not. We will answer any questions that you might have, but otherwise defer a more detailed discussion of the budget and the rate increase to the June 30th special meeting.
I have a suggestion for the people working on the documents. Very hard to read these little numbers. They're really useful to, yeah. No, mine are 4 times that thick. It's still difficult.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's reasonable to put the revenue on one sheet and the expense on one sheet and give them a little space, but it's not that it's impossible, but it's not easy.
Okay,
And,
you can see about reformatting it.
yeah, and there's just there's so much data there that, you know, it's important, it's been accumulated, but my tendency at that scale is to just glance over it and not pay any attention. I don't think that's the intention.
I think that was the goal.
The document, well.
Is this about right?
There you go.
Get closer. Could you move your hand back a little? Yeah, perfect.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I know it's difficult because you're trying to format it on 8.5 by 11, but I'm sure there are ways to.
I like doing it online, because you can just, get to a section and blow it up.
Yeah, I like that too, but I don't think there are going to be people that are going to be wanting to use the documents. And they might as well be friendly,
And the public.
in my opinion. So. But I'm with you. I got a big screen. And, you know,
Yeah.
just my eyes get tired. Yours get that burn?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. It is harder to keep it all in context, too, and I like flipping back and forth between pages, so it's harder to do on
It
a
is.
screen, I think.
It is. Especially with all the pop-up stuff down in the lower corner.
Like scores.
Yeah, you need this.
Scores, does anybody have a score?
I do. At halftime, we're down by 7.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think it started back up yet. Not that I know.
Still within striking distance.
Okay, well, we can keep rolling through this agenda. Does this take us, this seems a little out of order. Is this, would C be for you, Kathleen?
No.
Are we done with the budget stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
let me go to D, back to regular business. Okay,
You ready?
sure.
Really, you have a handout passed out, right?
Presentation?
Oh,
PowerPoint?
falling asleep here, yeah, okay.
Oh,
All right.
PowerPoint.
Down 10, 51.
Here's the next handout.
Okey-doke, ready to go?
I like your punch list.
Yeah, Save Our Water campaign.
Yeah.
Some of the new marketing that Governor Brown has put more money toward. So, over the past 3 months, there's been some significant developments that have prompted the district to amend the existing drought ordinance that we have in place, which that we adopted back in August of 2014. So staff is asking the board to adopt the proposed ordinance, which we're calling now 2015-1, to incorporate all these recent changes. And I'm just going to give a brief presentation on the changes. I'm going to focus on the changes to the, we're calling it the amended and restated drought ordinance. So just as some background of what's been happening, in March, when it became clear that the state was not achieving the water savings that the governor and the State Water Resources Control Board had requested from everybody statewide, they implemented some new end user restrictions and prohibitions. And they were advertised pretty well in the media, and that's the one where restaurants are required to only serve water upon request, and the requirement that hotels give the option to either wash or not wash the linens and towels. And so in March, we decided not to go and amend the existing ordinance at that time because we had, we kind of knew that there was going to be more coming in the next months, April, May, and we were right. So we held off making any changes at that time. So the next thing that happened was the snow survey on April 1st, where Governor Brown had a press conference
In the soil sampling.
right, with no snow around, and he announced in his executive order that he was going to now be asking for a 25% statewide reduction in potable water use. And then, of course, he then gave that direction to the state board to implement that 25% reduction. So the state board took the governor's direction to implement the 25% reduction statewide. And what they came up with was a set of tiers. So they took the data that water agencies had been submitting for the past year to on production and residential use, and the residential gallons per capita per day, and they ranked it, and depending on what your what your residential per capita use was, you were assigned to a certain tier of water savings. So Coastside County Water District came into Tier 2 with an 8% savings. Tier 1 is 4% savings, but that was reserved for very special cases. So really it kind of starts at Tier 2. So that was good news for us. We weren't stuck in the higher tiers of 36%. It could have been much worse for us. So that was good news. And so this tier of the 8%. So we're back on slide 4, really, I think. So the 8% reduction is on production. So we have to report our monthly production, and that's what they're basing our compliance on, not sales, but production. Okay, slide 5.
Yeah. How closely do ours match?
So the difference between sales and production is what we call non-revenue water. And in non-revenue water is leaks. It's the water we need to produce the water that gets lost in production, like might go out with the sludge, because we do try to recycle as much as we can, but some of that is lost. And it includes like firefighting flows, leaks. So, so that's the difference. And it varies month to month, so we're usually under 10%. Joe probably has the most recent.
Our budget assumed about 7%, 6.6% non-revenue water, but looking at it on a monthly basis, trying to compare production and sales on a monthly basis does not work very well because of our bi-monthly billing cycle and the uneven distribution of our accounts between the two bi-monthly cycles. So we generally have to look at a longer period to compare production and sales. And I think it's fortunate that the Water Board is tracking it on production, because we literally know production almost in real time. You can go in the next room and see the rate at which the Nunes plant is producing water. It's probably 1,300 gallons a minute right now. So literally every day we know what production is. So that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, I think it's much cleaner to do that.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Okay, thanks. So that's the state mandate side. Then on our wholesale, SFPUC, they are going to continue with their request for the 10% reduction in water purchases from their wholesale customers, which they did last year, and so they're going to continue that through at least through 2015, I think.
Is that voluntary or mandatory?
It's voluntary. It's voluntary. Okay, so slide 6. So now we'll get into the changes in the ordinance. So we added some new definitions, and we kind of cleaned up the language on one of them. I added the definition for agricultural water use because it was part of the state's changes in their resolution. Because there's issues with urban water suppliers serving agriculture, and the question of what the state considered agriculture. So they have a definition for it, so I thought I would include it in this ordinance. We changed some wording for the general manager and his designee, so cleaned that up a little. Added irrigation station, because as you'll see later on in the presentation, the state added another end user prohibition about not irrigating during rain events. So, I'm sorry, the irrigation station one is for, we're going to limit the time that an irrigation station can be on. So to help, reduce water waste and runoff. Then the measurable rainfall definition, we had to add that because the end user requirement from the state that now we trying to prohibit irrigating during rain events. So you had to kind of define what that rain event is. Okay, so slide 7. So in section 3A, there were 2 new end user restrictions and prohibitions added that came from the state board. And again, this first one, the application of water to outdoor landscapes during and within 48 hours after a measurable rainfall. So that's why we needed to define measurable rainfall. Then the other one was the application of water to ornamental turf on public street medians. And I think we've lucked out here because I can't think of any public street median that has lawn or turf. So I think we lucked on that. Lucked out on that one. So the next slide, changes to section 4. So section 4 specifically addresses restrictions on ornamental landscape and turf with spray irrigation. So we're going to keep, which is in the current ordinance, the time of day restrictions, where you're not allowed to water between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. We want you watering early morning or late evening, preferably. The new one is the length of time restriction. So no irrigation station can be on for more than 15 minutes. Again, it's to try to reduce water waste. And I should mention that when writing this section 4, I was trying to align it with what other water agencies are doing in the Bay Area, specifically on the peninsula and the South Bay. So So some of this, the timing was taken from what other agencies are doing, so that we could have more of a uniform message. And it, so for landscape contractors, they, it's a little bit easier for them going from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So it's not perfect, but that's the reason why we were just trying to make it kind of uniform throughout the BOSCA agencies at least.
We skipped over 3C. Do you want to talk about
Oh, did I
that?
skip 3C?
Fine print.
I'm out of
Fine
order.
print.
Well, I'll finish with section 4, then I'll go back to
She
the,
hit that, but not in order necessarily.
Okay.
yeah, I'll go back to 3C, sorry.
Water with your meal?
So,
What's your meeting, or you'll have to have sewer with them.
So back to section 4. So then the next new restriction, and again, this was to try to be consistent with other BOSCA agencies, is restricting the days of the week that you can irrigate with spray irrigation. So we decided to limit it to 2 days a week. You are not allowed to water on Saturday or Sunday. So it's by your address, odd, even. So odd is Monday and Thursday, and even is Tuesday and Friday. And if you have like a dedicated irrigation account that serves a common area that doesn't have an address, then you would default to Monday and Thursday. And if for some reason a customer needed to change their days, we'd be open to that. We can't do that for everyone, but for if there's a special need for a larger customer or something, we could change the dates.
Does it apply to drip irrigation as well? It's in
No.
water, isn't it?
No, it's just spray irrigation. In the other section, it gives you the exemptions.
Oh, great.
And drip irrigation, there's no restriction on days of the week. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons for that is to encourage people to convert to drip irrigation.
Wow, I like that one.
Okay, so now I'll take a step back and we'll go back to 3C, which is slide 8. So we talked a little about these newer end user requirements where the serving, drinking water by request and the hotel hospitality requirement for letting people choose whether or not to wash their towels and linens. The third one is a little more complicated. They added, the state board wanted to address customers of urban water agencies that have an alternate source of water, surface water or well. So they wrote this requirement that, so basically all non-residential, it doesn't apply to residential, but non-residential customers that use a water supply, any portion of which is from a source other than the water agency, Coastside County Water District, has two options. They can limit irrigation of ornamental landscape and turf with potable water to no more than 2 days per week, which is what we're trying to get the residential customers doing. Or they can reduce their potable water usage by 25% for the months of June 2015 through February 2016, and then you're comparing that to those same months in 2013. So those customers who have alternate water source have those, that's their choice. And because it's an end user requirement by the state board has authority to come in and do enforcement on that. So what we've requested is in this ordinance is that our customers who have an alternate water supply notify us and give us a heads up on what method of compliance they're going to choose for that, so that we have a record of it. And we'll have to do some outreach just specifically for that. Okay, so we did 3C, and that's it. If you have any questions about the changes. Yes.
One question I have is, it seems like so much of what the district is going to do going forward is based on 2013 numbers. So production numbers or use numbers, whatever. So where are the areas, in your opinion, we can best let customers know that. Can we have them know on their water bills what they used the billing cycle in 2013 compared to what? You all right?
Okay.
Yeah, I just get a muscle cramp.
Okay.
Hamstring.
Or, you know, like production numbers. Should we include in our production numbers the 2013 numbers so we can
Compare.
look at that and make percentages? It seems like that's the data that we have to live by.
Yeah, we could add that, I could add that like to my staff report on water resources, the 2013, so you can see where we are. Because I have to report that to the state every month by the 15th anyway, so it's something I'm already doing. So I could share that in the staff report. As far as customers, yeah, we actually have had people already calling in and asking, you know, what their past usage is. So it's something we can print out to give them. I'm not sure how easy it would be to put it on the bill. We're limited on space and formatting, but we can look into that. But the customer can always call in and we can print out their history and mail it to them for the 2013,
Yeah.
so that they know the kind of the 10%. But it's good to talk to the customer too, because a lot of customers are already very low. So for them to cut back 10% isn't practical. I mean, they're already very low users. So when we say that, you know, we're trying to get the customers that use more to cut back that 10%. And usually if a customer uses more water, it's usually because of their outdoor use. So that's why we're trying to focus on the irrigation practices and approach it that way.
We'll put the production number comparison in our weekly production numbers report. Our residential users have conserved significantly more than 8 or 10%, and that's what has put us in the low tier and what so far has allowed us to avoid imposing significant restrictions or conservation goals on our businesses that would be economically damaged by having to cut back more. So if we could stay, and that's a real benefit of residential conservation. Typical residences are conserving more than 8%. Over the first, let's see, in January through May of 2015, our production was overall 16% lower than in 2013.
Wow.
April was 22% lower, and May was 47% lower.
That's not good.
Well, that's
good for
been
me.
Mary and I are always having this tug of war with Kathleen over.
I'm happy.
Back.
Remember, this is Kathleen's show right now.
Terrific, Cal.
Well, I have the manager's prerogative. It's interesting that we had a public commenter express what seems to be a pretty commonly held opinion, and that is that we have some kind of restrictions or quotas for residential users or any kind of penalty. We don't have any of those things. We have no penalty for a residential user that doesn't conserve at all, and we have no standards for residential conservation. So, yet, we're still at stage 2 of our water shortage contingency plan.
We're still making
It's
these
voluntary.
amendments under stage 2
Right.
voluntary. Although the waterways type violations, the only enforcement we really have is to turn people off, which takes a lot of notification and, documentation. It's not something we can do right away. It is a common, we don't have the authority to just ticket people for, for water waste and things like that. But, so it'll take a lot of outreach and a lot of education and documentation to do enforcement against.
I don't think that people really appreciate how good our situation is being in a voluntary regime at 8% as opposed to some of these agencies that have up to 36% and significant mandatory cutbacks accompanied by significant penalties. So far we're in good shape and able to avoid that. And if San Francisco stays where it is, we hope to be able to avoid that through fiscal 16.
I have a question about the fact that we have budgeted additional funds for additional staffing to implement all of this. Are you, given the current circumstances, are you continuing to see a need for that additional staffing?
Well, I'll let Kathleen add her thoughts, but yes.
Yes.
And the context in which we presented that, I think, it was, we know it's not going to rain between now and November, and it's quite possible that things will get worse before they get better. At the Aqua Conference we just attended, the people from Australia said, well, we got to year 4 of what we thought was the worst drought ever, and we thought it's going to rain soon, it's going to be over. They weren't even halfway through. So we know that the next steps in reducing our demand will take very significant effort, more effort than we can mobilize over the time period we'll have between learning that we'll have to do that and having to actually accomplish it.
That was
I mean,
my
I guess that was,
question.
I don't know if that was a very clear way of saying it, but we
Takes time to
feel
hire
like
people.
we're going to need to do more. I mean, I think we're fortunate to be in the regime we are now, still voluntary, no penalties, but if it doesn't, unless we get some significant recovery, we won't be able to stay there, and we need to be ready for that.
So that was kind of my follow-up question, was just the timing on hiring additional staff. The budget, I guess, as of July 1st.
July 1st, the
assuming
budget
budget's
assumes,
passed.
I think we will plan to come to the board with job classifications for approval in July and look to bring these, we have 2 positions, one in the finance administrative side for meter reading and another in water resources for outreach and enforcement. So we bring those classifications to the board for approval in July. That's our plan now, and fill them after that.
Can I just add just one clarification? When Dave refers to being under voluntary, he's referring to San Francisco.
Right.
So San Francisco has a voluntary 10% still under their regime. The 8% is a state requirement to reduce the production by 8%. That's state law now. And so that is a mandatory requirement on us. So I just wanted to clarify the
Well,
distinction.
I notice you
between
have both in the resolution.
Yeah, it's very.
It's confusing. We
It's
talked
confusing.
about how to try, and it's hard to clarify. Within our world, within Coastside County Water District, everything is still voluntary, but we're already, in terms of, we have no quotas for how much water you can use.
I think Dave, we're not under allocations. We're under mandatory water waste restrictions and prohibitions, but we're not under an allocation. And I think that's what Dave's referring to.
Well, and it's
when-
confused, I think it's confusing for us, and I know it's confusing for the public. There's a lot of noise about mandatory water cutbacks. We're still in the voluntary cutback stage of our water shortage contingency plan. Yes, we have a mandate to reduce usage 8% versus 2013 production, but thanks to the good job our residential users have done of conserving, and thanks to Kathleen's persistent outreach efforts and the investments that we've made in improving conservation, we already meet that goal. So we haven't had to mandate further restrictions.
But it is a goal we have to meet. It's
Yes.
not a goal that's optional.
Meeting the 8% is not optional.
Right. Yeah, non-optional, required.
And then the ordinance provides tools that this district has. We have a lot of flexibility to how we meet that 8%, and what Kathleen has presented to you is an ordinance that includes not only the state restrictions on all Californians, but also some additional restrictions to help achieve that 8% reduction in conservation.
Yes.
One of the things I was interested in under section 2 definitions was the agricultural use. And so it says government code section, blah, blah, blah. So do I go online and I go to county gov or state gov, or how do I find that definition?
Yeah, that's what I did. I went online and found it. It's not all that enlightening. It basically, you know, it has a definition for commercial agriculture, which includes greenhouses, and you know, so that's like, so we have a sales class that's agriculture, but not all of those customers in that sales class meet the government code definition. So that's why I felt I needed to define, you know, how that's used. Because, you know, it's referenced specifically in the state board's resolution in the water code. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to read it, so thank you.
I can give it.
We should probably have it
Go ahead.
available anyway.
I'll go out and search. I just
Someone's
wondered,
gonna ask.
just wondered if we should put it in there. I don't know. That's my suggestion, is put the language. Is it big?
No, it's not that big.
Oh, you got it. You know it. Thank you.
Yeah, earned his money tonight.
Wow. That's amazing. It's just 6 words. It's a couple more than that. Hey,
I
barely.
was gonna pull it up on my phone, but I figured.
Fortunately, I've been practicing already. It's a little easier to read when it's in yellow. I think it's the way light is attracted.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks. So do we have to re-adopt this, or did we adopt it at one time?
You know, this is a change. It's a new one, so we have to adopt this
To
new.
adopt it.
We got to do it line by line.
So I move that we adopt resolution 2015-06, calling for and giving, whoops, wrong.
Oh, one.
Hold on, I was done with it, I put my papers away. Let's go back.
Ordinance 2015.
That would be it. I move we adopt ordinance 2015-01, restating and expanding mandatory water use restrictions and prohibitions under Stage 2 Water Shortage Emergency Warning of Coastside County Water District's Water Shortage Contingency Plan.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Exhausted, I need a nap.
Good job.
Please.
Yes, Director Coverdale.
Aye.
Vice President Glassberg.
Aye.
Director Flint.
Aye.
President Mickelson.
Hi. Great, thank you very much.
Good job, Kathleen.
Yay!
That Kathleen's got on top of it, isn't she?
Yeah.
Okay, so that, now, this is the E-125?
Yes, this is, I think, E minus 125.
Yeah, E minus 125, okay. Well, we've done this a few times since I've been here, so this should be, well, let's just pass it, guys,
Yeah.
in the interest of the game.
Well, now that we've got the price down, let's go ahead and run it.
Yeah, so that was good news. No, they sounded well prepared, had all the answers, and we love hearing that we're saving money.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, so.
We get to change the budget now, though.
So Arnie, want to give this in 2015-06 a try?
Sure, since I got halfway through it. I move that we adopt Resolution 2015-06, calling for and giving notice of a regular district election to be held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2015, and requesting the County Elections Department to conduct the elections.
By mail.
I'm not up for election, so I'll second it. Okay, Joanne, please.
Yes, Director Coverdale.
Aye.
Vice President Glassberg.
Aye.
Director Flint.
Aye.
President Mickelson.
Aye.
They've cut it from 17 to 9.
So what I want to know is if we didn't do that, do I get
Don't give away the fourth quarter for me.
You know, we were going to go ahead and go for an extra bonus year. Did you hear about that?
Joe, do you have anything exciting for
We decided
us?
not to do it. Everyone else
We
did.
were pretty busy this week, or this month. Got my report there.
Yeah, I saw, what did we lose in that leak? About 290,000 gallons? Is that going to be charged?
Yes,
That goes into our accounting, now that I've learned?
yes, it does.
Don't be losing water.
But on a brighter note, we got a new tank mixer, which has improved the water quality in Al's tank, which always, we were always adding chlorine to that. So now we really don't have to do that much anymore, if at all. But the big thing was the annual inspection by the Water Resources Control Board. They came out and they finally gave us our sanitary survey of the Denniston improvements, and they were very, very pleased. And I was very pleased. I was very pleased with how Sean, our treatment supervisor, Sean Donovan, conducted the tour, and the two treatment distribution operators that were there, Logan Duffy and Todd Schmidt. They were able to answer every and all question, perform any activities that she wanted them to do without any hesitation. And of course, the plants, they were very pleased at how well the plant runs. They had a few minor things for us to do, but they always do.
How far back did the inspectors go? I mean, did these inspectors remember the old Denison?
Yeah, they do. Well, yeah, because there's still stories that are circulated amongst them.
You know where I'm going.
Yeah. And so they're very pleased with the fact that we've not only changed back, a decade ago, but have been able to sustain our high level of operation and performance.
Yeah, so if they have been around long enough to know where we started, I'm sure they would be very, very, very pleased.
Yeah, so, we got the letter just this week of the results, and like I mentioned, there's some minor things. We have to update our operations manual. It isn't quite done yet. A couple other minor things. To actual show the results of our original pilot study with changing our coagulants. But these are minor things that we have. It's just a matter of compiling them and sending them in.
Good.
If there's anything else here, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I want to compliment you on the taste of the water recently. It's fantastic. Good
That's
job.
nature.
Good job.
But yeah, we do our best.
Yeah, but it's been great.
We're blessed with a really good water supply. We really, truly are. I worked for Contra Costa Water District for 13 years. We're blessed.
I'd also like to comment on the interagency coordination.
I was going to comment on it too.
That's really nice to see that the three agencies can actually coordinate in the best interest of everybody's rate.
It truly is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, no, I have that circled here, and
the city was a little shaky for a while there, but somehow we've gotten back on track. And the county, I was surprised that the county actually agreed to delay an overlay project until we could, get the Phase 3B of Avenue Cabrillo project complete, and they understood our budgetary constraints that made us move that back a year. But they were very willing and cooperative. It's really good.
yeah.
So we're moving a couple of pipeline replacement projects in Miramar up by a couple of years to accommodate the city's paving schedule. They're actually going to rebuild a couple of streets, including the one I live on in Miramar.
That's just a coincidence.
No conflict.
No city council members on your street?
I was not part of the...
Agency cooperation recently.
But these are very significant projects for the city. They're going to be taking out all the existing asphalt. This isn't a street painting project. This is 6 inches of new asphalt on our street.
Wow.
And on Washington, and we don't want our old cast iron lines breaking under those streets.
That'd be expensive.
It's been a good opportunity to work with the city and coordinate with them.
Good. No, thank you.
Yeah, a large portion of our maintenance budget is paving. And it really decimated our budget this year, just from paving from these catastrophic breaks.
It's also nice to see that the final phase of the El Granada pipeline replacement project is 70% done.
The design, yeah.
Yeah, the design, right.
Yes.
The final phase, which piece are you talking about?
The bridge.
Oh.
Formerly known as.
Oh, come on, I was so proud that I said it right. I worked so hard to be politically correct.
We tell it like it is around here.
Okay, thank you for that. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Thanks. Anything else? We have
Additions to the agenda? Is that next?
yeah. What, do you want something, what do you want, bigger print? We're already on that one. Requests?
I was kind of hoping that we might get an update on the design from the engineers or the cost estimation of the Main Street bypass project is what I call it.
Oh, that's good. That's much easier.
So I just curious as to, have we seen any bids or any costs, or
No bids.
No.
we're getting any kind of indication, or? if it's
The new
really
cost estimate, I think, is 1.7, substantially lower than the sticker shock number we
The 3.2
presented.
or whatever?
Right, the horizontal directional drilling is less than $500,000, so it really reduced the overall cost. The number I have in my mind is 1.7. We'll bring that back, I'll send it
Yeah,
out.
I'd love to say, and the other question I had was just curious about how we were doing with the work with Lily, with our person on Water
Okay,
Rights.
we got a notice from the State Water Resources Control Board that they're actually moving ahead with review of our petition for extension of time.
Right.
So it's a petition we submitted in 2004. And if approved, it would extend our time to December 31st, 2016.
Great.
So hopefully they will approve it before that time runs out.
Is there a schedule or anything like, are we in?
No, there's no...
List, or?
There's no real schedule, although the general feeling is they're trying to do these things a little more expeditiously than the initial schedule they followed with ours would indicate.
Yes.
The EIR was on the critical path, so we needed to finish the EIR, and then with our having done that, they then have restarted their consideration process.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's great. And want me to keep going?
Yeah, if you want.
All right. And I guess the other thing I'm really concerned about is having watched the recent SAM meeting on recycled water. It just seems like we're involved without being invited. And so I think that I'd like for the board to begin strategizing what we want to do to try to move recycled water forward. I think it's our duty and responsibility to get serious about it. And, agendizing it, maybe that's a way to start talking strategy, or maybe we need to have a session about it where we talk about it, or.
Like a
But it-
workshop kind of thing?
Yeah, but I think it would be really, especially because I know that there's money starting to be spent on SAM's part right now. And the SAM board has changed, so it's a different sort of situation. I don't even know if they have a manager yet, how that's going down, but,
They're looking for an interim, aren't they?
They brought him in, they are using MWST's general manager as an interim.
oh, really? Oh, interesting. So I just think that I think that we need to be proactive, that's my opinion. I don't know how to do it if we don't agendize it or workshop it, or
Yeah,
do something more than bat it along.
I don't know how much we can really discuss this, but I'm a little confused too, and I know the review called me and wanted my opinion of MWSD moving forward with recycled water, and my question was, oh, really? No one's told me that, and we are the water district that serves this area, so I don't understand. Yeah, so I'm a little perplexed here myself on what's really going on. I know we've been, been very proactive since the day I was elected in trying to move this forward, and we've done everything we possibly can. So I don't know what's going on. So I wouldn't mind a little update too myself on what's going on. So at some point, this needs to be discussed.
Yeah, so I'm not sure the best way to do that, but if it means, agendizing it, then we can at least talk about it and say yay, nay, or something. Or I'm happy with a workshop approach, or, I would look to staff maybe for a recommendation on.
Maybe staff could look into really what is the current status and certainly brief us, and if there is indeed movement, why haven't we been asked to the table? Or maybe there's been no movement, maybe it's a bluff, I don't know.
I just think it's also kind of our last chance three of us are up for election this year, and so things are gonna change. And so we still have a chance as a board to, you know, make sure that we put some kind of a direction there, and maybe it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, yeah, if staff could just kind of look into the status and give us an update.
We'll interpret that as direction to
Yeah.
look into it and at least have a discussion about agendizing it if there's something to talk about.
I don't know, we have had legal opinion in the past that that is our authority to distribute recycled water. I mean, the water code names us as the legal distributor of any recycled waters. Is that correct, or?
It's, yes, but
Okay.
it's more,
Yeah.
there's some nuances to it.
Yeah.
So it might be time for Dave and I and,
Yeah. So if there is any discussion, why aren't we at the table? Because water code certainly supports us distributing recycled water. Great, thank you, so that's certainly, yeah, great. Thanks for bringing that up, Ken. Anything else?
Let's go.
The
Okay.
suggestion that maybe next time, since we're going to have more people
Great to see you.
potentially at our
Yeah.
10:30, we have a
Sitting right
fan
in
or
the game,
something,
I'm
one of
jealous.
those standing fans or
Dave
something.
and I get together and talk about what we're going to
Nice.
Maybe a
set
new
up.
venue.
Doors, cross draft, something, yeah.
Kind of cool when you realize that they're 42.
So, we are done for tonight, and we shall all reconvene June 30th, 7 o'clock for discussion over rate hike.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night. Is that an adjournment?